Hello and welcome back, dear students. In today's class, we are going to complete the remaining part of William Wordsworth's pastoral masterpiece, Michael, a Pastoral Poem. This deeply emotional and powerful narrative explores themes of a family, sacrifice, and rural life, and the quiet dignity of human labor. Together, we will continue our line by line analysis, uncovering the poetic beauty, imagery, and philosophical insight that Wordsworth has intricately woven into every verse. Each line will be discussed with detailed explanation and literary references to help you understand not just what but also the why behind Wordsworth words. So keep your text ready and your minds open. Let's dive into the world of poetry and emotions once again. So, thus living on through such a length of years, the shepherd, Michael, the shepherd, if he loved himself, must needs have loved his helpmate. His helpmate means his wife. So, his wife or his life partner, and someone who helps and supports, especially in domestic life. So, Michael the shepherd has lived a long life. If he had any affection for himself, which is natural, so he must have loved his wife as well, for which she was a vital part of his life and survival. So this shows a quite domestic intimacy that is a common theme in Wordsworth's poetry, especially his celebration of rustic simplicity, right? But to Michael's heart, this son of his old age was yet more dear. It means despite his deep love for his wife, Michael's love is for his only son Luke. His son Luke surpassed everything else. Being born in Michael's old age, Luke held a unique emotional place in his heart, less from instinct tenderness, the same fond spirit that blindly works in the blood of all. So, Michael's love was not just the natural parental affection that everyone feels, it was something even deeper than biological instincts. Then, that a child, more than all other gifts that earth can offer to declining man. So, basically, here, Wordsworth suggests that for an old man, no gift on earth is more valuable than a child. The child represents continuity, renewal, and hope, right? Brings hope with it and forward looking thoughts and steering the inequated when they, by tendency of nature, needs must. So basically, children brings with them not just joy but also hope for the future. Even when the old man naturally loses strength and dreams, then the child reignites them. So, in quietude, it's a restlessness or unease, often due to love or concern, right? So, exceeding was the love he bare to him, his heart and his heart's joy. So Michael's love for Luke was overwhelming, is very exceeding. Luke was the center of his emotional world, his joy, pride, and life's purpose. For oftentimes, old Michael, while he was a babe in arms, has had done his female service. So even when Luke was just a baby, Michael had performed tasks traditionally done by women at the time, like rocking the cradle, caring for him. So it is showing his tenderness. So Wordsworth is certainly breaking gender norms here, like being father. Uh, Although he is father of Luke, but he he had done the duties of a mother as well. So Wordsworth is subtly breaking gender norms by portraying Michael as a father full of care and emotional softness, right? Not alone for pastime and delight, as is the use of fathers, but with patient mind and force to act on tenderness. So, unlike most fathers who play with babies, right? Who plays with baby with fun for fun. Michael had genuinely, patiently cared for his son. His affection wasn't momentary or playful. Actually, it was a devoted emotional duty, and he had rocked his cradle as with a woman's gentle hand. So Michael was so tender with Luke that his touch could be compared to a mother's. This illustrates the depth of paternal love rarely depicted so intimately in literature. So in this stanza, we can see that Wordsworth presents Michael as a deeply loving father, not just by instinct but by the soul. His emotional investment in Luke symbolizes the strength of a familial love and sets the foundation for the tragedy that follows in the poem. Right? Now, the next stanza. And in a later time, ere yet the boy had put on boy's attire, did Michael love. So even before the boy, the son of Michael, Luke, was old enough to wear boys' clothing. Boys' attire means boys' clothing. Example for while still a toddler or a young child, Michael cherished him, having him around. So, albeit of stern, unbending mind, to have the young one in his sight when he wrought in the field. So, although Michael was known to be emotionally firm and serious, which means he is emotionally stern and unbending, he still loved. He still loved having his son nearby while he worked in the fields. So, this shows the contrast in Michael's character, outwardly strict, inwardly deep, affectionate, right? Or his shepherd's stool sate with a fettered sheep before him stretched. So Michael would often sit on a shepherd's stool. He sit on a shepherd's stool with a sheep, with a fettered sheep. Fettered का मतलब होता है tied, right? Fettered sheep and led in front of him, likely during the shearing process, right? Under the large old oak that near his door stood single and from matchless depth of shade. So near the cottage stood a single large old oak tree which gave unusual deep and cool shade, which is an important landmark in the poem. Chosen for shearer's covert from the sun, thence in our rustic dialect was called the clipping tree, a name which yet it bears. So because of its shade, the shepherd used to gather it under it for clipping or shearing the sheep, right? And it was popular known as the clipping tree. So the poet notes it still retains the name. There, while they two were sitting in the shade with others round them, earnest all the bleed. So Michael and Luke would sit together under this clipping tree along with other shepherds and all focused on earnest and the bleed, which is earnest means focused and bleed means cheerful. As they worked, would Michael exercise his heart with looks of fond correction and reproof bestowed upon the child? So Michael lovingly guided his child, giving him gentle corrections and the small scoldings, not harshly but affectionately with fond corrections, right? So reproof का यहाँ मतलब है mild correction और डांटना उसको, बच्चे को अपने. If he disturbed the sheep by catching at their legs or with shouts, scared them while they lay still beneath the shears. So Michael would gently scold Luke if he played too roughly with the sheep, grabbing their legs and shouting, which could frighten them during shearing, right? So in these lines, in this passage, uh, Wordsworth paints a peaceful domestic picture. There is a father, Michael, who deeply engaged in his daily rural work. A child, Luke, is growing up in nature, close to animals and labor. The natural bond between generations being nurtured through shared moments, both playful and instructive. So the clipping tree, this is very important. It becomes a symbol of tradition, work, family, and rural love, a living monument of simple yet profound pastoral life. Right now, the third stanza is. And when by heaven's good grace the boy grew up, a healthy lad means son, and carried in his cheek two steady roses that were years old. So as Luke, Michael's son, grew older, thanks to God's blessing. So as he grew older, he became a healthy and lively boy, right? And with rosy chicks. So जो ये माइकल का बेटा है, ये by the good grace of God, by the heavens good grace, it means by the blessings of God, ये जैसे जैसे बड़ा हो रहा है, he became a healthy lad means a lively boy with rosy chicks. इसके जो चिक्स है वो दो ऐसे स्टेडी रोज जैसे हैं, दैट वर 5 years old. So the phrases two steady roses is a poetic metaphor for the natural blush or color of his cheeks, symbolizing youth and vitality, right? So then Michael from a winter coppice cut with his own hand a sapling which he hooped with iron, making it throughout in all due to a perfect shepherd staff. So when Luke reached this stage, Michael cut a young tree, a sapling, a young tree from a coppice. Coppice is basically um, a small wood where trees are cut for regrowth, and with his own hands made a proper shepherd staff. So he reinforced it with iron to make it sturdy. This was a symbolic gesture passing on trait of shepherding to his son, right? So basically यहाँ पर हम देखते हैं कि जो जैसे जैसे इसका ये बेटा बड़ा हो रहा है, ये यहाँ पर एक सिंबॉलिक जेस्चर है कि वो ट्रेड को पास ऑन कर रहा है, शेफर्डिंग के इस ट्रेड को पास ऑन कर रहा है अपने बेटे को. माइकल जो अपने अपने इस प्रोफेशन को वो किसको दे रहा है, अपने खुद के बेटे को. एंड gave it to the boy wherewith equipped he as a watchman oftentimes was placed at gate or gap to stem or turn the flock. So with this shepherd staff, Luke was now equipped like a real shepherd. With shepherd's staff, Luke was now equipped like a real shepherd. Michael would often assign him to stand at a gate or opening fence as a watchman, to watch or to control the flock, right? To control the flock, making sure sheep didn't wander, right? And to his office prematurely called, there stood the urchin, as you will divine, something between a hindrance and a help. Um, Luke, though still a very young, or we can say a prematurely called, it means still very young was given the duty of a shepherd। इसका मतलब है कि अभी जो ल्यूक है, ल्यूक जो है अभी वो छोटा है, उसकी मतलब यंग तो वो हो रहा है, लेकिन वो इतना भी बड़ा नहीं है कि उसको शेफर्ड की ड्यूटी दे दी जाए जो यहाँ उसको दी गई है। मतलब एज अ वॉचमैन उसको वहाँ पर ध्यान देना है, फ्लॉक्स का ध्यान देना है कि वो घूमे नहीं इधर उधर। इस तरह की जो शेफर्ड की उसको ड्यूटी दी गई है उसके लिए वो बहुत छोटा है। सो ही इज़ वेरी he is very young, or we can say premature to given a duty of a shepherd. At that age he was a mix of helpful or troublesome, as one might expect from a child trying to do an adult's job। तो यहाँ पे उसको एक adult job दिया गया है, एक बड़े इंसान का job उसे दे दिया गया है। And for this cause not always, I believe, receiving from his father higher of praise। So, because Luke was sometimes more of a troublemaker than a help, जैसे कि बच्चे अक्सर करते हैं, उसको काम दिया गया कि वो अपने फादर को हेल्प करेगा, बट ही वॉज समटाइम्स मोर ऑफ अ ट्रबल मेकर देन अ हेल्प। ही डिडेंट ऑलवेज रिसीव प्रेज। ऐसा नहीं है कि उसको हमेशा प्रेज मिल रहा है, जब वो काम को बिगाड़ देता है उसको डांट भी पड़ती है। So he didn't always receive praise from Michael for his efforts, though his attempts were appreciated in spirit। तो उसको ज़्यादातर उसको अप्रिशिएट नहीं किया जाता है, हाँ, लेकिन स्पिरिट्स उसको करती हैं, अप्रिशिएट करती हैं। ठीक है। हायर ऑफ प्रेज का यहाँ मतलब है पेमेंट इन द फॉर्म ऑफ कॉम्प्लीमेंट्स और encouragement, though not was left undone which staff or voice or looks or threatening gestures could perform। So, despite being so young, Luke tried his best, using his staff, his voice, even his expressions and gestures to manage the flock, doing everything he could to live up to the role, right? So, not का यहाँ पर मतलब है nothing, and threatening gestures refers to a body language used to warn or control animals, right? So this passage gives a tender, realistic portrayal of a childhood in a pastoral setting. Michael, an older but loving father, passes on both tools responsibility to his younger son. Luke, though still a child, enters the adult world of work where he is learning by doing. So the poem balances gentle humor, calling Luke a hindrance, with deep love and pride. But soon as Luke, full 10 years old, could stand against the mountain blast and to the heights, not fearing toil nor length of weary waves. So, as soon as Luke turned 10 years old, he became physically strong। Could stand का मतलब है he physically strong enough to endure the harsh mountain winds। the mountain blast का मतलब winds होता है। So, as soon as Luke turned 10, he became physically strong enough to endure the harsh mountain winds and the fearless of hard work or long and tiring treks through the hills, right? तो अभी वो इतना बड़ा हो गया है कि वो हार्श चीज़ें, टफ चीज़ें वो कर सकता है, वो ट्रैकिंग कर सकता है, हार्ड वर्क कर सकता है, लॉन्ग एंड टायरिंग ट्रैकिंग्स वो कर सकता है थ्रू द हिल्स, राइट। यहाँ पर टॉयल का मतलब होता है हार्ड वर्क, वियरी वेज का मतलब होता है टायरिंग पाथ्स और जर्नी, और ब्लास्ट का मैंने आपको बताया विंड्स, राइट। He with his father daily went and they were as companions। So यहाँ पर हम देखते हैं कि Luke started accompanying Michael, his father, every day, and they two were not just father and son, but true companions। They were they are true companions, sharing their work and life closely। Why should I relate then objects which that shepherd loved before? were dearer now. So the speaker says that it almost goes without saying that the things Michael used to love, mountains, the flocks, the objects, the flocks, and the natural world, became even more precious to him now. But he experienced them alongside his beloved son. That from the boy they were came feelings and emanations, the things which were light of the sun and music to the wind. So Luke, with his innocence and youthful presence, brought a kind of spiritual glow and emotional resonance. His very being was like light to the sun, light to the sun, and the music to the wind. It means he enhanced and enriched even nature's own beauty and vitality, right? So emanation का मतलब होता है the things that flow or radiate from a source. Light to the sun एक ये metaphor है for the radiance or emotional brilliance. Music to the wind, it suggests harmony and added beauty. In that, the old man's heart seemed born again. So, because of Luke's presence, Michael felt young and alive once more. फिर से उसका वो शुरू हो गया है, और जो उसका यंग उसका यूथ था वो फिर से अलाइव हो गया है once more, and his heart was rejuvenated as if given a new lease on life through love, companionship, and shared experiences with his son. Thus, in his father's sight, the boy grew up. So it means Luke grew up under the constant and loving gaze of his father. His development was shaped by the rural life they led together. And now, when he had reached his 18th year, अब ये बिल्कुल adult हो गया है, he was his comfort and his daily hope. So by the time Luke turned 18, and he had become Michael's deepest source of comfort and joy. In old age, Luke represented Michael's hope for the future and someone to carry on his name, work, and values. So, this stanza beautifully captures the father son bond in the quiet pastoral life of the countryside. Wordsworth portrays Luke as not just a son but a source of emotional light and meaning for Michael. So, this growth from child or companion is symbolic of continuity, legacy, and the world. And this is a central theme of the poem, right? I think this is sufficient for the class. So let's pause our journey here for now. We have explored the heartfelt bond between Michael and his son Luke, how the companionship grew with time, and how deeply rooted love and hope can blossom in the simplicity of rural life. To keep the class from getting too long or overwhelming, we'll continue with the remaining lines of Michael, a pastoral poem, in our next session. Believe me, what lies ahead is even more touching and meaningful. Till then, reflecting on the beauty of ordinary life and quiet strength of family bonds. See you soon in the next class. Thank you.